if you have motivation and skills for logical thinking and some sort of at least basic fondness for mathematical thinking, please come to our faculty. We will provide you with the skills and knowledge to tackle the kind of grand challenges of the humankind. And we also provide you with the tools to live meaningful life.
Tervetuloa. Welcome back to the JYU For You podcast. My name is Irfan Durmic, and I'm your host with the most glasnost. You know what's a certified boss move? You apply to a university, get rejected, go to a completely different university, make a career there, and then you decide to come back to the university that rejected you as a professor of applied ecology, and moreover, you become the dean of the faculty that rejected you. Logical next step? Tell us that story on this podcast. Today we're joined by the Dean of the Faculty of Mathematics and Science at JYU, Professor Mikko Mönkänen, who tells us his story of how he became a professor of applied ecology, how he ended up teaching at JYU, what were the things that he learned from his both teaching and research experiences, how he ended up becoming the dean of the faculty, what are some of the most important things he has done, and he also shares with us his vision for the faculty over the coming decades. Finally, we also send out a message for all of our alumni, current students, and everybody else who's excited about the fact that the faculty is celebrating its 60th anniversary in November. I hope you will enjoy. Cheers. So, how was it growing up in Kuopio?
Kuopio is a nice city to grow up. I think it's a beautiful city. It's in the middle of the Lake District of Finland. It's convenient in size, so it's not too big, not too small. So basically, you can find everything there that you potentially need. I loved living in Kuopio.
But I feel like it's relatively similar to Jyväskylä. That was kind of my...
Yeah, I would say so. Even though there's less inhabitants in Kuopio than in Jyväskylä, the city center feels much larger in Kuopio for some reason.
I think it's maybe like... granted, I have no idea how that city center has changed, and it's been a while since I've been there. But I feel like it's a little bit more architecturally diverse.
Maybe.
Which makes it feel which makes it feel a little bit bigger. So,
yeah, and perhaps the reason also is that Jyväskylä city center is in between this hill or ridge and the lake, and so there's not that much space available for the city center itself. Unlike in Kuopio, there's more space.
Yeah, the city center here can't expand, which I guess is probably one of the reasons why a lot of stuff is moving towards Sepa, I guess. A lot of stuff moving out there, But okay, so like 15 years in Kuopio, if I remember.
Only 15 years. I was born in Kuopio, and then when I was 2 or 3 years old, my family moved to Oulu, and I lived there perhaps 10 years, and then early 70s we moved back to Kuopio, and I went to school in Kuopio and also had my high school in Kuopio.
Okay, interesting. So when you moved back to Kuopio, do you remember if you had like... I know this is probably going to be like, dumb question and difficult to remember it, but did you have any like friends still there or like...
No. I was like too small.
Too small.
Yeah, when we moved to Oulu. But I still remember how confused I was with the dialect.
Oh.
Because the dialect in Oulu is totally different from Kuopio, and this Eastern Finnish dialect it sounded so funny. We had several funny moments with my brother when we moved back to Kuopio, listening to this Eastern Finnish dialect. But it only took like a couple of years, and then we were fluent in Eastern or Kuopio dialect.
Honestly, it's kind of nice to hear like, local Finns complain or I guess mention, Finnish dialects, especially when you just say that kind of, because it took us a couple of years and we got to. It makes me feel a little bit better when I don't get any of the dialects. So wait, you got a brother?
Yeah, older brother.
Oh.
He still lives in Kuopio.
Oh, so he...
Yeah, and my sister too, so that's why I call it's my hometown. I was born and raised there, went to high school there. That's why I feel that I'm from Kuopio, even though I have been living there only for 15 years or so.
But I guess it's like, where you have most families, so I guess it makes the most sense. Yeah. So why go back to Oulu for university?
That's a kind of a long story. I had friends. I was a keen bird watcher at that time, and I had some friends who were studying biology in Oulu.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, at that time, obviously also now, there's an entrance exam to university. I tried to actually get to Jyväskylä to study biology, but that didn't work out. I failed in the entrance exam. But for some reason at that time, Oulu University, there was a kind of in the entrance exam, there were additional questions that, for example, people who had some sort of a nature history background. So because I was a keen bird watcher, I took the opportunity and answered to those questions related to birds. And Oulu University valued those answers more than they valued them here in Jyväskylä, and that's why I was capable of entering Oulu University, and I started studying there. And also Oulu was a familiar city to me because I had been living there for quite some time already before.
So I'm assuming nowadays, if somebody's trying to study biology at JYU, in the entrance exam, they value questions about birds a lot.
Maybe, but actually it's totally different type of entrance exams nowadays. So the exam has changed. So I think there is no kind of a natural history related questions anymore.
I would have assumed you would know what type of questions are going to be on there.
Nope.
Okay,
I don't know that.
Okay, outside of your jurisdiction, but did you actually had to physically come to Jyväskylä, do the exam and everything?
Yeah, I was here doing the exam. Actually, at that time, I was in the army doing my military service when the entrance exam was. And I didn't have that much time to read the books for the exam. That's why I didn't fare very well in the exam.
So wait, don't tell me that you used those very limited days of leave to do...
Yes.
Just for that, you deserve to be the dean of the faculty. I mean, come on. Because what is it like? How long did you do the service? Like 347 days or whatever?
Yeah, it was like 11 months.
Okay.
330 days or something.
So for 11 months, you guys get like what, 16-ish leave days or something like that. I know it's a relative.
Basically, every second weekend was free.
Okay, but still, I mean, like using one of those just for an entrance exam, and I'm assuming using a lot of them to at least try to study for an entrance exam. Okay, I respect.
I probably had 2 extra days off because of the entrance exam.
Oh, okay, so maybe you used it strategically. Still, I'm still kind of impressed. So, but the Oulu one, did you do it also during the army service or afterwards?
It's a kind of a national entrance exam.
Ah, okay.
Only one exam is enough.
Oh,
and then the universities select out of the.
Okay, so I guess back in the day it was kind of like what the SAT is in the States nowadays. Just do an exam and then send it to the. Okay.
There's a long history in biology that there's a kind of a national level entrance exam. So every universities, they collaborate in organizing this entrance exam.
So here's maybe actually a dumb question because you studied biology technically, right? So what is the relationship between ecology and biology in the simplest terms?
Ecology is just one area of biology, and ecology is a area of research where we study the relationship between organisms and their environment. So it's just one branch of biology.
So why the particular interest in ecology? Was it just something that Oulu was specializing at the time, or?
I didn't know that much about differences between among universities at that time, so I was just keen on studying biology wherever I could enter. So I put Jyväskylä first, Oulu second, and then perhaps Helsinki was third. My third option. Mm-hmm. So Oulu picked me from the line. So I started doing it in Oulu. I didn't know that much about differences among universities at that time. I only had this one friend of mine who was already studying biology in Oulu, so I knew something about it before going to Oulu. I think I would have studied the very same things irrespective of the university that actually chose me. So studying ecology was totally okay Still okay in Oulu, in Jyväskylä, in Helsinki, in Turku, or in Eastern Finland.
But what particularly prompted you towards ecology?
Maybe my background in bird watching, ornithology. I was so keen on species, their relationship to their environment. Why do they migrate the way they do? Why some go to Africa, for example, for winter, and how do they know when to start migrating? So I was very keen on, particularly in migration, and also about what kind of information do they use when they make those decisions to migrate or not migrate. So I was already then kind of wondering, how is it possible that this small bird, like the willow warbler, which is only like 10 grams in size, flies all the way to Central or Southern Africa, stays there for perhaps 6 months, and then travels back. What's the point?
I think it's a fascinating thing because, I mean, like, essentially they're based, like, I guess we could just say, you know, intuition or whatever. They can do something that, like, we nowadays need, like, incredibly sophisticated, you know, technological achievements, and also just like agreement between countries and the time zones and everything. It's ridiculous. But where that curiosity exactly? Like, did it come up in Lukio? Did you have like connections with people that were interested in that particular field? Because something always has to prompt an interest in a field.
Yeah. Perhaps it was just this. When I was doing bird watching, like particularly in springtime, it was so fascinating to observe those birds arriving from the south. And I enjoyed that so much that I started to wonder, how is it possible that they do it? So I was kind of curious from the very observation that those individuals, they fly long distances, they know how to orientate from Europe or central Finland to, let's say, Nairobi in Africa. And so how is it possible? I was so I didn't know. I was just curious about it. How is it possible? I wanted to know more about it. And then I think it was in a high school that I made a biology kind of essay on bird migration. I particularly of the how do they orientate? How is it possible that a small bird like willow warbler, they don't migrate in flocks? They basically fly individually. How is it possible that they can find their way from let's say Central Africa to Kuopio in Central Finland?
But did bird watching start off just as a hobby for you?
Yeah, it was just a hobby. Yeah.
Okay, so you actually managed to turn a hobby into like a long-term interest.
Yes.
Do you think that's probably one of the reasons why it ended up becoming a PhD?
Maybe, actually, yes. It was the very reason, because I was like 15 years old. I decided I will become a biologist, and my career will be in doing science. I was so keen on this bird watching and birds and nature in general.
So this might be, you know, picking apart, you know, a lot back into the past. But do you think the passion was more about learning and researching stuff, or also just the aspect of, I want to tell people about this, I want to share this? What do you think was the stronger driving force?
I think it was the curiosity of knowing things, understanding things. I really wanted to understand, how is it possible? I started with this migration example, so I really wanted to understand, how is it possible in the first place? That was I think my original motivation.
So are you satisfied with the answers you've gotten so far?
Yeah, it's been fascinating career I have had in research. I started studying birds, so I did my gradu.
Licentiate?
No, the master's.
Master's thesis. Okay.
Master's thesis on birds and bird communities. I censused, so basically counted birds in different types of habitats, in different types of forests, and I wanted to understand why certain species are associated with certain habitat types, and what is the kind of overall organization of bird communities in Finnish forest. That was my first kind of real scientific study.
So I guess that's where the applied aspect of applied ecologists comes in.
Yeah. Already then I was interested in how forestry and for example, forest harvesting affects birds and their opportunities to find resources out there.
I mean, I guess if you're going to study forests, is there a better country than Finland for that?
Exactly. 75% of the land area is forest here in Finland.
75%?
Yes.
But like undeveloped forests, just untouched? Or?
No, just forest land.
Oh, do you know how many of them are like completely just untouched? You know, still just...
Untouched. We only have very few hectares that are completely untouched. So it's mostly at the national level, it's like 88% production forest at the national level. In southern Finland, it's 95% production forest.
Jesus. But okay, I mean, I assume you would know about that because aren't you on a committee that is kind of related to these types of things? There isn't there like the Finnish Sustainability Committee or something like that, or panel.
Yeah, it's a kind of a science advisory board for the Finnish government in sustainability-related issues. So I'm a member of that board or panel, and perhaps because of my expertise in ecology and ecological sustainability.
Do you think that you guys as scientists actually have a decent enough influence on how things are being done, or because I know different societies have different opinions on like expert advice, as we can see in certain administrations. But how much do you think is the government nowadays, or even just in general, Finnish society, receptive to expert opinion and expert advice?
At the official level, Finns and Finnish governments, they do respect science and knowledge, and the objective is to base all the decision on science. So that's the starting point, that they would like to use the best available knowledge when they do new laws or decisions in the government. But in practice, it varies, I would say.
I guess, but at least the ideal is there. The ideal there is at least, because I think if you stray away from an ideal a little bit, it's fine. But if you don't have any sort of an ideal, then we have perhaps a bit of a problem. Yeah. We'll get back a little bit maybe to that in a second. But something that I'm curious about now is, so you spent 24 years at Oulu University, both as a student, researcher, and granted there were some moments in between. I know you spent a little bit of time in Canada.
Yeah, if I remember, that was kind of a pre-doc year. Usually people have postdoc after they defend their thesis, but I had a pre-doc year in Canada.
Why Canada? Was it just like, similar enough weather, or?
No, actually I was at that time, and part of my PhD thesis was about comparing bird communities in North America and Europe, related to the kind of deep history of forests in these two continents. And I had a hypothesis that because of the ice ages, differences in the effects of ice ages in North America versus Europe, that has a kind of repercussions on how bird communities are organized nowadays. So I was studying that. So I have had a field season over there in Canada, I did this census or bird counting work in Canadian forest and compared those results with the results that I had from Finland.
I take it to confirm the hypothesis, or?
Yeah, pretty much so. The kind of a deep history of forest, it's really visible in how bird communities are organized. For example, in North America, long distance or tropical birds that migrate to the tropics are associated with old forest, like mature forest. Unlike here in Europe, most of the migrants are associated with like young shrubby habitats. And that is related to the kind of a deep history of the availability of habitats in Europe and in Africa.
Okay. I would bug you more about this, but I have you only for a limited amount of time, so maybe for a part 2 of the episode. So you seem to be enjoying yourself in a research capacity at Oulu University, is the sense that I'm getting. So what brought you to Jyväskylä? What was the... Still bitter about that entrance exam?
Yeah. I have a kind of a joke that I often tell here in Jyväskylä. What does it tell about this university that you don't accept me as a student, but you are willing to accept me as a professor? so, so what does that tell? But anyways, I had a permanent position in Oulu. That was early 2000, and then I found that there's an opportunity open in Jyväskylä University professorship in applied ecology, and that was actually the kind of a question or theme that I was most interested in at that time. Still am kind of how to apply ecological knowledge to solving practical issues. And I noticed that there was a kind of an open position, and I applied it. I didn't think that they would select me because I was thinking that there are stronger candidates than me. But then obviously in the interviews I was able to convince the selection board that I'm the person to for them. I'm the right person.
So I didn't work out in the exam, but 30 years later.
Yeah.
It's never too late. You never know when an opportunity is
25 years later, they accept me. So
I rounded that up.
Perhaps we can say that that's a prolonged entrance exam.
Some high-level selection process.
Yes.
You should ask them if they dug up, the entrance exam. Maybe that helped you this time around in the interview. So how has it been since you've been here in different capacities? In a sense, you started off as a professor.
Yeah.
What were some highlights that you remember from your teaching experience here?
When I came to Jyväskylä, I started kind of a totally new types of courses in like population ecology and conservation biology. There had been earlier courses on conservation biology, but I took those courses and made them more the way I thought that these courses should be organized. And partly this population ecology, I was keen on kind of understanding how populations co-extinct and what are the means of saving endangered populations from becoming extinct. That's why I was learning myself more about population ecology, and then I also organized a course in population ecology. And it was kind of a very theoretical course on how populations operate and what is the relationship between natural populations and their environment, the reasons why they are becoming endangered or threatened. But the trick, it was not in the beginning. It was not very popular course because it was
New
population.
class.
Yeah, and it was theoretical. So I changed the name.
Oh,
it's the how to protect populations. Pretty much the same course, but I changed the name. And then it became very popular. Students wanted to know how to save species from extinction. And that's what I did. That was one of the first things I did in Jyväskylä, renewed the conservation biology and population ecology teaching.
So I guess you're kind of good when it comes to rebrands, because when you were the chair of the Department of Biological and Environmental Sciences, now I have to double check in my brain, is that the right term? Yes, it is. You also implemented changes there, going from 4 different lines to 2 different ones.
Yeah.
I do find that whole rebrand thing of the class funny, because it is interesting how much branding matters. You can keep exactly the same thing, because one of the programs, I believe we rebranded it from cognitive science and intelligence to artificial intelligence. That 10x is your number of applicants. So I'm assuming it had a similar impact on the classes.
Right.
But what were some insights that you kind of gained from teaching and working with students? How much were you able to further both your own research interests, and how much were students able to influence those interests?
The basic idea in university teaching is that it's based on science. So I was capable of using my expertise in ecology and conservation biology when I was planning my teaching. But so at the course level, I would say that it's science it is based on science, and science comes first, and then the teaching is organized so that I can.
It's in accordance with it.
Yes, yeah. But at the curriculum level, I think it's perhaps a little bit different story. So that at the curriculum level, you have to think what are the skills and expertise that the students need when they have their diploma from university. So what are the skills that they need outside the university? So at the curriculum level, we have to make sure that the students get the knowledge and skills that they need also outside university. So that's my understanding how things
work.
Yeah.
So how much contact do you guys keep with alumni, for example, to make sure that, like, hey, is the stuff that we're doing actually working for you guys? How do you constantly double check that?
So we have realized that, for example, we are in a phase now that we renew lots of our curricula in the coming years, and we have realized that we need to discuss with our alumni that are working outside university what sort of skills and knowledge the current everyday life requires, and also what might be the future skills, because when we start from the beginning, when a student enters the university, it takes a minimum of 5 years before they graduate. So we have to be kind of looking into the future, and to be able to understand and foresee what are the skills and expertise needed in the future. We have to be in contact with our alumni and also other people and private sector, public sector stakeholders out there.
Actually, when we're kind of mentioning alumni, how do you think international alumni, now concretely talking about alumni from the international master's degree programs of the faculty in particular, I guess in this case, how do you think they factor into that conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. That's probably something that we need to more carefully work on. I think we don't have a careful plan about that, but now that you asked, we have to start thinking about it. How to make the best use of the connections and the networking that we are capable of creating when we have those students from other countries than Finland. Actually, the objective is to manage so that most of them would want to stay and would be they have a potential to stay in Finland, finding jobs and making their lives here in Finland rather than going back to their original countries.
Or somewhere else.
Yeah, somewhere else, yes.
Actually, since we kind of like seamlessly transitioned into the whole dean conversation, I was still going to stick with, the professor aspect of it. But maybe just my personal curiosity when it comes to the academic aspect of ecology, I guess. A while back, I stumbled upon this book called Stochastic Methods in Ecology. Mm-hmm. So how interdisciplinary did you have to make your work when you were working as a professor? Like how much, for example, mathematics did you guys have to use? How did it feel like? Was there any cooperation between different departments in the work?
Oh, yes, definitely so. It's not possible to do science anymore in isolation from other branches of science. Already when I started doing my PhD, I noticed that statistics is super important. I have to learn statistics. Ecology is very much about collecting data, large data set, and analyzing them using statistical methods. So that was already right from the beginning clear to me that there's no way to do science in isolation. And that's evident, more and more evident nowadays, that doing high quality science, you have to collaborate among scientists from other branches of science. Not just natural scientists, for example. When I do my research, I'm willing and have to collaborate with social scientists, with economists. So it's not just ecology. When I do applied ecology nowadays, it's very multidisciplinary science.
But do you think that also just the fact that science has to be multidisciplinary nowadays, do you think that gives us more potential as scientists, be it, social, natural, or whatever, to have a more direct impact on society?
Definitely so, because the most critical questions like climate change or biodiversity loss, they are basically very simple questions of, let's say, emitting too much CO2 to the atmosphere. But how to solve that problem, that's a multidisciplinary question. How to organize our society so that we are capable of changing the ways we do our economies, for example, or how do we reorganize our society so that we are not anymore causing biodiversity loss. That's a very complex question involving many different aspects, also from the scientific point of view. So biologists alone, they are not capable of solving biodiversity loss. That's definitely so.
There was a kind of like a example that comes to mind to me is, I don't know if this is a joke or whatever, but they say that like the optimal solution that an engineer would come up with for a particular problem is never the optimal solution that an economist would do, because an economist actually has to think about the real world, but an engineer often has to be like, oh, this is kind of like the most ideal technical solution or whatever, or even just like a simpler thing, the boarding process on an airplane. What we essentially do is a very weird kind of randomized process. I mean, not even fully randomized, but the optimal solution that you would go with, nobody would ever be able to follow that.
Right.
So that's kind of like, I guess, that interdisciplinary conversation. So you said in, I guess it was a blog post, or I guess wrote in a blog post, that scientists have to focus more on building direct bridges to society.
Yeah.
So in what way do you think the Faculty of Math and Science in this particular case can actually actively be building bridges towards society?
Building bridges. I would like to start from the kind of doing science nowadays is kind of a most interesting questions nowadays, or the questions that advance science most are nowadays somewhere in between the traditional branches of science. So the kind of a new innovating problems lies in the kind of how do I say in the connection point between two traditional branches of science. And that's something that our scientists have realized more and more, that if they are willing to make high quality science that really advances the knowledge of the science, they have to start collaborating with scientists from other branches. And that also then applies to making impact of science. More and more our scientists, including me, we understand that in order to make an impact with the science in the society, we need to collaborate more with the outside world, with the stakeholders, decision makers, private companies, private sector.
Do you happen to have a concrete example, either from the faculty, one of the departments, or even from your own world that kind of like comes to mind that can illustrate that?
Where our researchers have started working with.
Yeah. Where the researchers are working together and that you can directly see like, okay, this is having an impact.
Okay, let's kind of one obvious example is that during the COVID times, there was all that sudden very much demand on research on viruses. And luckily, we had a long tradition in our faculty. We have a long tradition in virology.
Really?
And so kind of a basic science. We have a long tradition of doing basic science in understanding how viruses interact with bacteria, or how viruses interact with cells in organisms. How do they enter to cell? How do they reproduce or replicate themselves within the cell? Kind of a basic mechanistic understanding how viruses behave and how do they live. All that sudden, that knowledge was super important. And our researchers started working with companies, with other research institute, and now it's kind of a very strong area of research in our faculty, how to make for example, antiviral products. Products that are capable of killing viruses on surfaces and in products. So, and all that sudden, basic science that was done in our faculty for a long time turned out to be super useful in the society.
I actually didn't even know we do that at the faculty.
Yeah. Yes.
Again, this is a marketing question. That's kind of a cool thing. That's something that should be mentioned a little bit more.
And that's also a sign that you never know beforehand what type of basic knowledge is going to be useful or applicable in questions of solving societal problems, because you can't necessarily foresee what sort of a basic knowledge is needed. That's why we need, if the society really wants to have new innovations that have a societal impact, you have to keep this basic science
Funded.
Yeah.
And also just to have constantly these opportunities to innovate and iterate. Because I think, if we think about it, I guess 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't a separate department of statistics, so to say. There was statistics as a separate discipline didn't exist. It was just, mathematics and like maybe a couple of classes. Or I guess maybe even, I don't know, was ecology considered a separate thing? Maybe it was a little kind of included in biology, and then you have a couple of classes. So maybe talking a little bit about curricular reform and coming up with new things. Actually, let's go with this first. So you've been Dean of the Faculty, Math and Science, from 2018, second term right now.
Yes.
Last one, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. Got tired already, or?
No, I'm not tired. I just think that it's somebody else's turn to take the lead. Two rounds is enough. I have a feeling that if one person is too long in a leadership position, it's not good for the organization anymore. There has to be renewal every now and then.
Yeah, I think it takes away too much of the innovation.
Yeah,
if you stay too long. And there is that maybe even element of like, when you have stable leadership for a while, there is exactly that stability. But the more stability there is, then there is like less willingness to take risks.
Exactly.
And sometimes you want to take some risks.
Yeah, there's a traditional saying that the organisms don't fail because they do wrong things, but they fail because they do right things for too long. So renewal is the key word here.
Is that a Darwin thing? Because it smells a little bit like Darwin.
I think it's a little bit later than Darwin.
Oh, we'll have to figure out who actually came up with that one. But do tell me, so why did you decide to become Dean of the Faculty, and what are your responsibilities? Simplest terms.
Simplest terms. I've always been interested in new challenges. I don't want to just repeat and redo things that I have done in the past. So I'm always looking for new opportunities, new challenges. And when all that sudden this dean's position became open, okay, I decided I will apply. Let's see what happens. If they decide to select me, I'm kind of very motivated to do things for the university and for the faculty. So I was motivated, and then all of a sudden there was an opportunity to apply, and I started. So I was selected, and then I started as the dean of the faculty. And the second question, what
responsibilities.
Yeah. I would say that my previous boss, the former rector of Jyväskylä, said to me that there's there's three main tasks for the dean: recruit. So it's pretty much recruiting new professors to the faculty. But I would say that even more importantly, it's a kind of academic leadership position where it is utmost important to think things strategically. So it's kind of because I have experience being also the head of department. That's more like operational leadership position, but dean position is more strategic. So you have to start thinking, what is the kind of society that we would want to have? What is the future kind, and what is our role as a faculty? being the part of this university, how should we renew our operations and the way we work? What is the kind of curricula that the society would potentially need in future? So kind of a strategic thinking and discussing with people about the future opportunities, future challenges, how to reorganize the faculty when we realize that this is the trend, this is the trajectory that the society is taking. So it's kind of I would say this strategic leadership at the faculty level.
See, I would even call it like a strategic visionary work.
Yes.
And maybe I guess that former rector who said recruit, I would even see that as maybe not just recruiting professors in a sense, but in a way where you're also working as like, because of the decisions that you're making, that's going to impact student recruitment. It's also going to impact recruitment of different staff members who might have differences of ideas. So it's like maybe like grand architect in a way. Yeah. I guess that's fitting considering that our Architects Day in Finland was a couple of days ago. But was that also kind of like part of that decision-making process, and maybe not decision-making process, but were these ideals part of the decision to make a new master's degree programs? Because I know there are a lot of these diplomi-insinööri programs. Refresh my memory. Which are the new ones that we have or that we're going to have soon?
Safety technology and then statistics and data science. So it's kind of a new kind of technology curricula in safety technology, and the other one is in statistics and data science. So the question was...
Yeah, so like why did you guys decide to make those, in a sense?
The basic reason was that we realized that the way our curricula were built, particularly in physics and chemistry and in mathematics, they were not kind of appealing for the kind of a current generation of young people. They were not found interesting enough. So we have had difficulties in filling the positions, study positions in physics, in mathematics and chemistry. And so we started thinking, what should we do? And then we realized that perhaps one of the problems that we have to solve is how to make our teaching and curricula more relevant to the society. And then we started discussing with the private sector and with the public sector stakeholders what is kind of a need for skills and knowledge in natural science, in physics, in chemistry, in biology, in mathematics that they would need in now and in future. And then we came up with this idea after discussing with the society around us, that we came up this idea that okay, there's strong need in private sector but also in public sector organizations for safety skills, safety management. The safety issues are becoming more popular and more in demand in future. And also we realized that one kind of a trend, kind of a major trend in the society is that there's always and all the time more data available from different sources and kind of a real data and also false data. And this sort of a data management skills are getting more and more important in future societies. There's even a saying that data is the oil of the future. So it really keeps the wheels turning in the future society. So basically those are the reasons we came up with this idea of starting new curricula.
But this is I mean, like a perfect example to me of that bridge being built between scientists and society. And
exactly.
It's really that two-way communication. I had no idea there was both, a private-public partnership and conversations about that, and actually trying to find something that, hey, we think society needs this. Why do we think that? Oh, we talked from private companies, the actual government and whatever.
Exactly.
And these guys are starting off, 2025 and 20... No, yeah, September 2025 and September 2026. Those are the first generations when they're coming.
2026.
2026.
Yes. So we still have a little bit, year and a half to really figure out what bits and pieces we put together those programs.
What do you think is something concretely that we can do? Now let's focus just on the faculty, because the university has its own plans. What do you think as a faculty we can do to make it it both more attractive to international students, but also to encourage more Finnish students to come to the faculty?
Yeah, I think we have to work on both of these problems, like how to make our curricula more appealing to Finnish people. And that is, I think that's a kind of a partly a marketing problem, because we think in our faculty that our curricula have already been very good. And if people are interested in solving so-called grand challenges of the humankind, natural sciences and our curricula already now provide the skills and knowledge to solve those problems. But for some reason, we have not been able to market them well enough so that people understand that if they are interested in let's say, somehow solving the problem of climate change or finding new technological innovations to mitigate climate change or to organize this circular economy better than nowadays. It's basically a technological question based on natural science. But we haven't been able to kind of convince our young generation that this is the
solution.
Yes, we provide the skills to make the solutions. So if you want to have a meaningful career in your work life, natural sciences is
the way.
Right. One of the ways.
One of the ways, yeah. I think it might be just at least part of the perspective, you know. I mean, hell, even nowadays when I imagine a scientist, I just think somebody who's hidden in their own little corner office typing something or writing on a piece of paper. And even from your direct example, you can see like, yeah, no, you can be both a scientist and an educational leader, academic leader, and, you know, have an actual more direct impact on certain things in society. So maybe wrapping it up in one important detail. The faculty right now is celebrating this year its 60th anniversary. So I know you haven't been here for the entire 60 years. I highly doubt anybody's been here for the entire 60 years. If there is somebody, they need to get like a bonus salary for this year or whatever.
Yes.
But how do you feel about the faculty, you know, turning 60?
I would say that this 60 years has been a success story in Finnish science. And when I look back in times, perhaps more carefully, that I know the times that I've been here since 2005. It's been a period of stability and renewal, kind of a very good balance of stability, keeping the kind of important things like I said before, keeping and respecting the basic science. So the kind of a base line or the basis of our science, we have to keep that. That is our strength, the basic science. But on top of that, we can build all sorts of kind of a more applied things and think how this basic science, which is our strength, can serve the society better. So when I look back in time, this 20 years that I've been to Jyväskylä now, it's been very successful period from many perspectives. We have been growing quite much. We have particularly more external funding from outside sources. We have academic funding. We have funding from the EU sources. It's becoming more diverse. On top of increasing, the amount have increased, but also the sources are more diverse than they used to be. We are very strong in science. We are nowadays also very strong in applied sciences. And one good example being that just a year before I came to Jyväskylä, there was this Nanoscience Center was founded. So Nanoscience Center actually last year had its
20th anniversary.
20th anniversary. And that's one example of this success story. And I think it's a good example of this need and a kind of a vision of the importance of renewal. And I'm telling this because I was not part of kind of organizing or designing it, but I think it was a brilliant idea that to bring physicists, chemists, and biologists together to work on scientific issues at the nanoscale. I think it was a brilliant idea, and it has turned out to be successful.
Yeah, and I think they've had like a ridiculous amount of success both in the private sector, and there's always just some random new technology that you realize, oh, there is a certain connection to the faculty.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I think so too.
Makes you kind of feel proud of like, and exactly what you're saying, this fact that with the sciences you're always going to have the fundamentals.
Yes.
But it's nice to see that there is an ability to build on those fundamentals, kind of build these bridges and connections and see, okay, how far can we go?
Exactly.
So considering that you used to also be the chair of the Department of Biological and Environmental Sciences, you guys are celebrating the 55th anniversary. So how do you feel about that? Because I'm assuming that that department is a little bit more personal in a sense.
Yes. It's a long story of biology teaching and research in Jyväskylä. I just had a look at the history of the department a few days ago, and I realized that how small the department was in 1970 when it was founded. It was just few people, and the first, was it like 20 or 30 students that entered that came to university in autumn 1970. There was hardly any classrooms, any labs available, and actually it was so that the department had to send the students back to their homes for a couple of months because there was no materials, no labs available at that time. So it was just very small in the beginning, and nowadays it's our department is a community of close to 200 people, very diverse department working from, let's say, from cellular level to level of biomes and the entire life on Earth and even life on the kind of exoplanets, and so it's a remarkable success story and a story of growing to a full-fledged scientific community.
But I think it's wild when you have that just like, in half a century. Because, okay, sure, 55 years might seem like a lot, but in scientific terms, what is 55 years? That's
exactly. It's just basically 2 generations.
Exactly. So I don't know how big you are on predictions, but where do you see the department and the faculty in the next 50 years?
Oh, now I really need create a vision here.
Put you on the spot right now.
Yeah. I would guess, and that's actually my strong vision as well, that in 50 years' time there will be need for natural sciences. We will have physics, we will have chemistry, we will have mathematics, biology, and also all those basic sciences. But more and more they are somehow working together, not just natural sciences, but with other branches of science. So we still have those basic sciences in the background, but more and more it's more multidisciplinary, more interdisciplinary. Particularly if you want to have an impact, it's necessary to
mix and match in a sense.
Yes, I have a kind of a metaphor here that it's tomorrow's scientific way of doing science is like forest. First of all, we have this soil, which is basically the strong history of sciences, the nourishing soil of the history of science, and also the skills and knowledge that we have nowadays. And then we have the trunks, which are the kind of basic sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, statistics, and so. But the canopy, that's, if you look at the forest from above, it's a canopy where you don't see, you don't necessarily see the trunk and the individual trees. You just see the canopy of sciences.
Yeah, you see the results.
Yes, exactly.
So kind of just like you see it, this is my simplification, I guess. You see the evolution continuing, but also becoming more and more interdisciplinary.
Yes, yeah.
So what's kind of a message right now there? So a lot of international students have already applied to a variety of the programs offered by the faculty. We have a bunch of them. So there's a physics program, there's Radmep, there are a couple of them in the biological and environmental sciences. high performance computing. I can't name all of them, but there are a bunch of them. What's a message that you would have for international students that applied to the Faculty of Mathematics and Science, and also the international students that are currently in the faculty?
My message, I may have several messages, but one message is that we need you. We need you guys. Please apply to our faculty and become a member of the faculty, and also Finnish society needs you. We need skillful, talented people from abroad. That's definitely true.
This is probably going to be the promotional short.
Yes.
And also, since right now there are a lot of Finnish students that are applying in March, I think the application season is from the 21st of March till the 26th. I will add it in the program notes. And since I'm assuming, there are a bunch of people exiting high school worried right now. Oh, what's the decision I should make? There are probably parents that are worried about their kids making a decision. What's a message that you would have for all of the people living in Finland right now that are contemplating, okay, where do I go study? Where do I send my kids to study?
Yeah. My message would be that if you have motivation and skills for logical thinking and some sort of at least basic fondness for mathematical thinking, please come to our faculty. We will provide you with the skills and knowledge to tackle the kind of grand challenges of the humankind. And we also provide you with the tools to live meaningful life.
And at the end of the day, do we have a message for all of our alumni?
I think from the faculty, I would say that it's a kind of a win-win situation, that we need you, we need our alumni to really understand where this society is going, what are the skills and knowledge that the society outside the university needs. But from the alumni perspective, it also provides opportunities to create networks with other alumni working somewhere else. So it's an opportunity to learn new things, and also opportunity to collaborate us and to make sure that our teaching curricula really meets the requirements of your organization, and also potentially find the future employees for your organization.
Actually, speaking about networking, since the faculty is celebrating its 60th anniversary, that usually has to have a party. So is there a big party coming up? Or?
Yes, there will be a big party in November this year.
November 6th?
Yes.
2025. Yes. So is everybody invited, or is there a special list for that?
The planning is still going on. I don't think it's going to be totally open so that everybody can come, but it's definitely for our alumni, for our staff members, present staff members, former staff members, and so.
Okay, so how nice is the budget? Can we just organize a huge party in Paviljonki, or is that outside of the realm?
Actually, it's going to be in Laajavuori, Scandic Hotel.
Oh. Can you put me on the list, or we'll have a conversation about that? But hey,
the details of the party is still on the drawing table, so I don't have the details yet.
I got your email. We'll have a conversation. But hey, I just really want to thank you for your time and just sharing both your story of how you ended up coming to Jyväskylä. I think it's really important to have somebody who is in a leadership position, who both has been in the field, both, directly in their own profession and also in like different academic positions, and also who has the ability to not just have the ability, but also to have this desire to make certain things better and have an impact. And I think that's a good model for scientists. So thank you for that. If you guys have a desire to be the type of scientist and individual that can actually have a positive impact on society, well, I think you know where you could apply. Thank you guys again for being with us. I hope if you're an alumnus and if you're a student right now, I hope you will find ways to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the faculty, 55th anniversary of the Department of Biological and Environmental Sciences. I actually got it right. And we hope to see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a lovely weekend and take care. Kiitos ja moikka. Cheers.